Yo, what's good, gamers? This one's just going to be a sort of quick, like a little video guide on what I do when I make a boss mule, what I recommend doing to sort of get like an easy bit of progress, and just how I set them up. The way I do boss mules, and eventually I'll pivot into like stronger mules, but for now I just have like 12 CRA boss mules, and they will make me like a decent chunk of cash. You'll see I have them at level 220. This is to future-proof them for when I pivot them into lomein boss mules. But for now, I'm quite happy with what I get from them. And they're really cheap to make as well. So I'm going to sort of go through what I have on them, what bosses I do, how much I make, and then I'll have like a summary at the end of just like all the different things. But nice and easy. One of the main things that makes boss mules a lot cheaper to make initially is Legion. And you'll see here I get like a big chunk of IED, I get a big chunk of boss damage and crit damage. And this is all for free. When you make boss mules, of course, you're going to level up new characters, so you're going to increase your Legion regardless. But 6k and 8k are big milestones for your Legion power. So consider that first before you go into the sort of whole boss mule rabbit hole, because you could save yourself a bit of meso by doing that. Another big thing, and this is one of the main things in my opinion, is nodes. Now, nodes are a massive source of power for any character in general, but especially for boss mules, they're a great way to save yourself some meso when you're making the ult themselves. Classes I recommend, I'll have like a different video for like a boss tier list and stuff. In this example, I'm using my marksman. You'll see my boost nodes are both level 15. And then all my skill nodes are just sort of here. And my boost nodes are boosted on the node slot to get them to level 40. I use about 300 node stones per character on all of my boss mules when I make them. When you think about like 12 characters, that can sound like a lot of node stones. But as an example, the 6th job update that we have coming with the warm-up event gives us 1.2k node stones. So that's like 4 boss mules if you think about it for a CRA level, which is that's like almost that's over 2 bill per week that you can get just from using those 1.2k node stones efficiently. Or you can just use it on your main. Like, I'm not going to tell you what to do, man. Just do what you want. Like, it's up to you. It's your account, not mine. But this is how I do my boss mules nodes-wise. In terms of equipment, and this sort of ties into like when to start a boss mule in itself, is I use Absolab. You can use like sort of lower tier gear like Empress gear, which you get from, of course, clearing Empress and using the Pieces of Darkness and the Pieces of Ruin. I think this is just for the weapons, so yeah, just the Pieces of Darkness. But when I was able to trade like normal lomein or hard lomein for actual boxes instead of just coins, that's when I really started to make boss mules. And if you're not if you're a player that's not against like carries or anything and you're happy to join them, a lot of guilds, or my guild at least in particular, was always willing to carry people to sort of help them gear up. I do carries myself as well every Thursday. But yeah, it's a sort of great way to help sort of gear your characters, get a big set effect and a nice chunk of damage. I use CRA. CRA is really easy to get. Again, I was trading CRA on my main to then help build up my boss mules, which is a good way. And then in terms of like equipment, I use the basic boss set on my mules. You can use reinforced Skolix here, and some of my characters do. It's just reinforced Skolix takes about a month to get if you're buying it with coins. But the boss set itself takes like a couple days at best. 10 days at max for like a noble Ithia ring. But these can all be replaced with like event rings as an example. Pink bean belt, these are all sort of like basic boss items that are very easy to get. NLC rings also for free. Super easy to get, nice and easy. In terms of my weapon, secondary, and emblem, what lines I go for, I usually go for boss damage, and then either like IED, and then like a line of attack. Again, this is just sort of to like future-proof them a little with the attack, because they're low Star Force right now. They don't have much attack to scale from, but boss damage and IED are super important in these lower levels. In terms of the thresholds that I go for, because I'm 8k Legion, I have a lot of boss damage already and IED. So anywhere from like 85 onwards, IED wise, is a good place to park. And then boss damage, I go for 200 plus. You can get away with lower values than that. Just keep in mind you might need to spend more on Star Force as an example, to sort of bring down your clear times. And again, we've got hyper stats, so I just pump all of these into the bossing stats really easily. But that's a sort of very basic explanation of like what I make my boss mules with. And these are for like CRA mules. So the bosses that includes would be Zakum, Magnus, Hardhiller, and then all 4 of the CRA bosses, so Pierre, Von Bon, Crimson Queen, and Vellum, and then Pink Bean and Cygnus. Now, they're the bosses I do. You could also add in Princess No as well, but I used to do Princess No, but it just takes too much time, especially when you're doing this across multiple characters. I'm trying to be efficient as possible, and if you're spending like 2, 3, 4 minutes on the Princess No whale on like 12 different characters, you're losing a lot of time. So I just do extra characters, you know. In that respect, I'll show you how much they make, and that is going to be this one here. I do 9 bosses, which are the ones that I've just mentioned, and that's for 716 million meso in about 30 minutes. This time can vary depending on the class, depending on how much you funded. You could even get this down to like 10-15 minutes if you're strong enough. But at that point, it's all about like weighing up how much to spend versus your return on investment. Because I spread this over like 12 different characters, the value is like, you know, it's very different. But these are very cheap characters to make, especially if you're on a decently funded main or you've got a decent bit of income. They're very, very efficient and quick to like bring up to speed. In that respect, I'll just sort of show you a brief like overview or like a summary image, and that's this one. You'll see on the left I've got a screenshot of all the equips, and as I mentioned, unique to legendary weapon secondary emblem, so that's your weapon, your secondary, and your emblem. 2-line preferably. If you hit that at unique, you can settle, or you can go to legendary to then like hunt for 2-line more. But I mainly prioritize IED and boss at these lower levels, and then for the rest of the gear, it's rare to epic 6%-ish. I usually go to epic 6%, and they're all essentially 10 to 12 star, just because it's pretty cheap. It's very, very cheap to get that. You can push them further. Again, you can go to like 16 star, 17 star, start looking to do like normal lomein to sort of give your character some extra power. But I just keep them at CRA. Eventually, I'll probably make these stronger, but I like spending on my main a lot more. Nodes-wise, as I mentioned, it's 300 nodes. More if you want to. You don't have to do 300. You could do like 500 if you really want. But I managed to get on almost all of my characters pretty much everything that I want to my standards in about 300 nodes. On some, it even took less. But my Shadower, for example, because it has 2 sets of tri-nodes, or boost nodes, it took a bit more than 300. I think about 350 to get my level 40 slot. But it's super easy to do. And then you want to aim for 40 boosts and then whatever you get on skills. You can pump in more to level up your V skills, like to extra strength, to sort of get faster clears. But your boost nodes are really what matters a lot more at this sort of low boss range. And then on the right, you can see we've got all of the bosses and the amount of meso that makes per week. Now, when you multiply that across like 10 characters as an example, that's 7 bill a week extra. Just from doing some bosses, which is, when you think about the time it takes to do these bosses as opposed to the time it would take to grind that amount of meso, you can see why people do boss mules instead of like grinding as an example. Boss mules are really, really good. Me personally, I'm a player that likes to have like a main and that's it. A lot of people will use boss mules and then build them into like second mains, and then have like much stronger characters on their account for a lot more legion power and just something extra to play. So you can sort of do what you want with this, but this is my sort of like little basic guide just on what I do with my CRA boss mules, because you know I kind of enjoy these. I think they're quite fun. In regards to what I use, I'll just sort of do like a little bonus thing here, I guess, because you've watched the video. I have my Shade, which is my Hyper Burning. My Night Lord I don't use because I hate Night Lord. I regret making this. I shouldn't have played it. I have TB, and then I have Bowmaster, Marksman, DB, so Dual Blade, Shadower, as I mentioned, Hero. Hero's real boring, man. Buccaneer, Blaze Wizard, Wind Archer, Nightwalker, and Mihile. And they're the ones that I do, and then plus my main. And I sell about, I think, 140 crystals a week-ish, depending if I feel like doing Princess Snow or not. But I really enjoy it. My Shade especially, I didn't think I would enjoy this much. I was literally just going to burn it until 250 and then use the Legion bonus, and that was it. But I might take it further, I don't really know. But yeah, that's kind of it. I just want to say thanks to my channel members. Thank you very much, Demas. Thank you, Cheese Dog. Thank you, Misty. Thank you, Zookeeper Michi. Thank you, Grappler Jenkins. And thank you, Woolia Reboot. Yeah. Boss mules are pretty good. I'm kind of degenerate in that I enjoy grinding. So sometimes I look at my boss mules and I'm like, man, I just can't be bothered to do this. But they are a great source of income, especially when you're in the later bosses. I know people that make like 26 bill a week or something crazy, which is quite literally double what I make. It is ludicrous, man. So yeah, if you put the time in and you put the effort and the meso investment into these, you can get some really good stuff out of this. So yeah, thanks for watching. I hope this is able to help, and enjoy your day, man. Pog.